Hey everybody, your friendly GM Bobby here for another interview episode of Diary of a Game Master. I'm here with two very awesome guests that have agreed to talk to me tonight. If you listen to Shadowrun podcasts, if you are consumers of all of the different content out there, you have probably listened to or at least heard of the Violent Life podcast, and I am graced with the two creators of the Violent Life podcast. We've got Amanda Milstein and Damian Szydlo with us today. Say hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello, chummers.
So, how are you guys doing tonight? I am very glad to have you on.
Doing pretty good.
Doing good. A little sick, a little sunburned, but we're hanging in there.
I've heard of you guys for a long time. I've been listening for a while, and so I'm a little bit, have my own biased view. It seems crazy to me that people would not have heard of the things that you do if you're a Shadowrun fan. But in case some of my listeners or viewers have not listened to your stuff, why don't you give me the quick elevator rundown of what is the Violent Life podcast and why should everybody be listening?
Sure. Well, we're a Shadowrun podcast. We're sort of dual-natured in a way. First and most primarily, we do audio dramas. We started as a kind of doing audio blogs, kind of 5-minute sketches, where Amanda voices Vendetta Violent, a Shadowrunning shaman rock star. We've kind of grown from there and grown into more full-length scripts with voice actors and the whole thing. And then the kind of second half of it was always supposed to be an informational, kind of an aid for players and GMs for getting into Shadowrun and trying to learn the ropes. And that's kind of shifted to doing more interviews and full-fledged kind of world building and other interesting stuff like that. Or at least I hope it's interesting.
I was on one of those informationals one time. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have you again.
Oh, all right. I will be on there anytime, any place, as long as that place is my office from my computer. So you mentioned the one half of it is the audio drama, the star of which is your main character, Vendetta Violent, and that is voiced by the one and only Amanda. And so
No pressure
tell
or
me
anything.
from your perspective. Tell me who is Vendetta Violent. I want to hear your description.
So since I'm fairly new to Shadowrun, the things that grab me the most are really who she is as a character and as a person. But like Damian said, she's a rock star by day, Shadowrunner by night. And since the early episodes were shadowcast, so they're first person stream of consciousness, her perspective, they're a little bit insular, a little bit biased. We see her internal world and her view of herself, which is incredibly polished and incredibly just really theatrical. And I was saying earlier that one of the first things that I said to Damian during the audition process is that I think she has a sort of jazzy tone about her. I read I was reading the blog that the character was based on, and just the way that she speaks and her cadence of speech, to me, she seemed very kind of like jazzy. But then in the recent episodes, as we're expanding into radio drama style formats with other characters and actual fully fledged scenes with stage directions and stuff, we're seeing her out in her Shadowrunning side of her life. She has this sort of dual life going on, and we're seeing a little more of that human side, a little more of her flaws. And it turns out that as much as she is an incredibly experienced rock star, she is an incredibly inexperienced Shadowrunner. And
Right.
She's making mistakes and paying the price for it. So it's been really fun to explore that side of her and see that in many ways she is quite childish and selfish. And she's starting to get into trouble for it. So,
Well, you mentioned that this whole thing started as a series of blog posts, and I think that's really, really interesting. So tell me about that. So this was was a character of yours, Damian, and you were writing some blogs for it. So was Vendetta Violent your character at the table? Like you played her and wrote up things from her perspective?
Yeah, essentially. It started kind of as a weekly journal. My GM was like, "Hey, do a journal every week, and I'll give you one karma, just to kind of keep everybody immersed."
Right.
So I was like,
You can't say no to karma.
"No,
so.
that karma's mine." Um, so then we kind of we took it from there, and the game ended, and I was kind of heartbroken. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna still keep writing these things. Why not?
Yeah.
And I put them out there on the official Shadowrun forums, and some people seem to dig it. So I turned it into a bigger blog. And after we got to about 12 or so of them, I decided, you know what? I'm going to get over some of my my anxiety and just go for it and do a podcast. And kind of there we were.
Yeah. So what made you so was sharing Vendetta's story was that your inspiration for doing a podcast, or is podcasting something you've always wanted to do?
You know, it's funny because when I started doing this stuff, I guess I refound my love for doing audio stuff. I had always, when I was younger, thought, you know, maybe I'd like to get into radio, and that's fortunately or unfortunately just not a reality of modern day, or it's very difficult to get into. So it wasn't the reason to get into it, but I certainly did find it afterwards. But yes, I have a passion for art, and I just thought that maybe it would be cool to see some of this dramatic writing for Shadowrun into in an audio format. So
Yeah. It definitely must be challenging to do. I mean, I've done some dramatic readings just on my own of the little, as you know, Damian, the actual play that you and I and some other people are putting together. Fleshing out the world building of that, I've done some dramatic readings of the history, and that's just me by myself writing it and recording it whenever I feel like, and I find that so hard. So it must be it seems like it must be quite an undertaking to not just include someone else, but also be doing it and making sure that, you know, like, I don't know. It just, the whole thing seems, I was glad when I was finished with telling that history. I was like, this is just too much.
it's a lot of writing, but truly I found it a joy. Amanda's great to work with. I have a couple friends who are actually actors, and I had them sit in and do some lines for the recent audio drama. So coming from a background doing photography, I'm kind of used to coordinating multiple people to get a collaboration done. So it worked. It kind of transitioned well into this, but you know, I felt at least it's been very rewarding.
Sure. Yeah.
I think we also just have a really good working relationship. I'm constantly bugging and annoying him about getting scripts in earlier and earlier in the month because my schedule keeps filling up. And I know writing is, I mean, that's the heavy lifting there. Writing takes time and it takes inspiration. And to have someone be like, I need this like 3 weeks sooner than usual, that's a lot of pressure. So he puts up with me. But I also think that, you know, bringing other people in on a project. I have a couple of side projects I've been working on my own, and often it can be helpful to have another person to keep you honest and to keep you on schedule and stuff. I need it in a lot of my stuff as well, and Damian definitely keeps me on schedule with the recordings.
Right.
So yeah, it's good to have collaborators, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how long? Let's talk some more about the podcast itself. When did the podcast start? And how long have you been doing it?
It's been about a year, hasn't it?
It's actually we're approaching. Would be I think it's this month or at least this coming month. I believe it's a year August. Actually.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Got anything planned?
For the anniversary.
Yeah.
I think that I couldn't I couldn't plan things if I wanted to that way. I think that we're coming out with a lot of releases soon, anyhow. So I'll just
Yeah.
say that releases.
Yeah. More content, more of the thing
Yeah.
you guys love.
Yeah, because I mean, we actually just came out with a celebration, or kind of like a gift series, a mini series, 2-part, just for launching our Patreon, and we launched our Discord, and we took a lot of big steps. So it was like, here's what we can do. And we also started a new audio drama series called Redmond Born, which actually steps away from Vendetta Violent. You yourself voiced a small part on that recently,
Yes, I did.
which has been a lot of fun as well.
I was gonna say, I feel
I
like
had a lot of fun doing that.
that one was cool. I liked that one. But I also feel like the format of the show has been going through like a clonal expansion lately. So that being around the 1 year anniversary is kind of fortuitous.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know, you guys, your podcast, you talk about has been growing. You're doing it the right way. I did it the opposite way, which is when I started all my YouTube stuff a year ago. I said, "Oh, I have all these ideas. I'm just going to do all of them." And then, and then now, then in the middle of that, I had an infant, a second one, and I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, it's time to start pruning back. Sorry, guys, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not.
That's fair.
Well, it's gonna be some heavy lifting, but I think we've spaced it out enough. And I'll say that right now before we get to all of that stuff. Once I get into it, I'll be dying. But
Right. Well, it's like you said, you love it, and that at least for me, I know that's what keeps me going. So, so how did you guys meet? How did you come across each other? How did you find Amanda?
So there are a couple of voice acting community forums on Reddit, and I had been searching for work there. I actually recently quit Reddit. I don't frequent that forum anymore for just personal and political reasons. I don't think it's a good company to support, but unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, they do have some great voice acting forums that are really
Sure.
supportive communities. And that's Damian. You frequent it's called the Runner Hub, the Shadowrunning subreddit.
yeah, I frequent the Shadowrun subreddit as well as the Runner Hub, and just kind of lurk there these days. But
Yeah.
Yeah. So he put out a casting call, and I responded to it. So, and I was saying earlier that the audition, the casting call, basically consisted of here's the link to the blog, the Vendetta Violent blog, pick an excerpt, do a couple of readings, and no notes or direction, just read it.
yeah.
Which was kind of fun.
And was that on purpose, Damian? Were you just looking for someone's interpretation of the character? And
I was. Again, in various artistic endeavors, I'm used to collaborating with people. So I like to kind of, especially when I start working with somebody, I like to kind of put something out there and then see what they give back to me and see if this is somebody that that has a flexibility that I can work with. And the funny thing is, I honestly almost missed getting to work with Amanda because I put the casting call out there, and I had a few people biting. And I believe you were in the process of moving at that time, or
It's possible. No, a year ago I had just finished up a contract and I was switching employers. So.
because I remember you were just setting your kind of like studio stuff up or your audio stuff. And
Oh yeah,
you're
that
like,
was brand new.
You're like, give me like a few more days to try out for this. I'm like, okay, let's. I won't close it yet, and
I don't remember that.
I do, and I'm super thankful that I went for it because Amanda was obviously by far and away the best that auditioned for it. So here we are.
It was pretty funny because early on with the first couple Shadowcasts, I had this thought that I would record this. He would send me the script, I record it, and send it and get notes back and say, okay, change this, do more of this. He's never given me a single note in a year, ever. And early on, it was infuriating because I was like trying to hone in, what our interpretation was going to be for this character. And he was like, I love it. It's great. Let's go with that. And of course, I'm like, that was supposed to be a rough draft, man. Let's polish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know from, I was talking a long time ago. I was talking to another person I was interviewing about this, and we were talking about just artistic direction, and he made the good point that yeah, when you're venturing out to perform some sort of artistic endeavor that somebody wants you to do for them, like giving boundaries and giving context and all that stuff, while it might sound like that's restricting, it's actually sort of like freeing,
Yeah. I was really surprised at first as getting into voice acting, because I am also a writer, and I thought that I wouldn't enjoy not being in control of the world building and the character building, and that I would want to have more creative control. It turns out it is incredibly freeing to let go of the reins and have somebody else just hand you the material and just interpret it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can imagine. I've always thought voice acting would be really, really fun. I in my youth, I think I briefly mentioned this before we got started on the interview. In my youth, I did stage acting, and that was a blast. So,
well, and one of the great things about doing things is I felt immediately that Amanda had a great grasp of the character and what I was trying to do and the tone. So the thing is, I had to ensure very early on. I'm like, my lack of a response or I guess some constructive criticism is because you got it bang on. I'm not like the guy that is just like,
No,
oh no,
sorry.
it's good, it's great. It was just because she nailed it.
Like that.
So
yeah, but I guess you guys were still getting to know each other, so it was natural.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can totally imagine, Amanda, how you might think like maybe he's just saying, oh yeah,
That's
that was
awesome.
good.
No, I didn't think that at all. I genuinely, he said he liked the interpretation. That was great. I just, at the time, I still was trying to get my bearings. Again, I had just set up my recording space. I still was like getting signed up for voice acting classes. So I've only been in this a year. I'm still learning a lot. I didn't mean to make it sound like you're not, giving direction and stuff. But he knows also I am an incorrigible perfectionist to the point where I will, like, as it's coming up to a release day, be bugging him with my existential crisis of, I recorded it, but it's not good enough, and I deleted the whole thing, and it's terrible. And I've done that a couple times. It's been pretty bad, and I feel awful about it.
Well, but the times that you have done it, I've been kind of like, oh yeah, that's okay, and then you come back and you just kind of kill it. So I've learned to trust her when she doesn't think it's good enough.
So before we, before I move on to talking about, more focused on voice acting, I want to put a cap on this. We've been talking about Violent Life, the podcast. So we just talked a lot about the sort of drama part of it, the Vendetta violent part of it. Tell me a little bit, Damian, about the informational part. Was that something you always wanted to do? Did that kind of come as like a second thought, like afterthought?
So, funny story about the informationals is that I never really intended on doing them, but I got my wife got me this microphone for a gift when I decided that I kind of wanted to do this, and she was supporting it. So I was like, you know what? I think I might get into a little bit of voice acting myself. And then kind of strayed away from it, and I was like, okay, what the heck do I do for the show? And I want to fill up a little bit more content. So I started with kind of picking a couple topics, mostly from conversations that I'd been having on Reddit, and seeing where they kind of brought me. And then kind of refining that, and then, dealing with the funny thing is when you deal with a mixed show like this with audio dramas on one side and the informationals on the other side, you get a really mixed crowd of fans. One side of the fans doesn't get what you're doing with the audio stuff. I got a little bit of pretty much feedback, pretty much going, assuming that it was the ramblings of somebody obsessed with their character, with their Mary Sue character, with their waifu. And on the other hand, I had some people going, you know what, ditch the informationals. The audio dramas are where the gold is. So I realized quickly that I'm sure that there was a bunch of people not speaking that liked both, and that I couldn't please everybody. So I decided to just keep pushing forward with doing what we were doing and hoping people liked it, and then moving on to interviewing people and doing more inclusive content that way.
So, but you enjoy doing both of it, right?
I do. I love it.
I mean, that's what's important, I think, as long as because that always shines through, is that you being passionate about and enjoying it. I like recently you've started doing more interviews, which end up being more long form content on the podcast, and I like that. It's been a welcome change.
Yeah. Between having Hyper RPG on, yourself, having Rob or Bamps as a now somewhat frequent guest co-host.
Yeah, he's been on what, twice?
Yeah. He's been on for the Den episodes, and then he was on for a general kind of character and contact building segment that we did. So, and he's got some great feedback, and he's a great idea guy. So like I'll come out with these ideas and kind of format things, and then he just grabs that idea and spins it around and gives me something that I hadn't kind of thought of or expected. So very, very welcome feedback. And I think it makes for a good show.
Definitely. It's a great podcast, Violent Life. You've got the informational half like we talked about, and then we've got the amazing audio drama with Amanda. And I think everybody should check it out. Where could they go to find it?
That would be www.violentlifepodcast.com.
Pretty straightforward.
And they can find it, I'm sure, on iTunes or
Google Play, all of that stuff. Should be pretty quick to find on most apps.
So I didn't have any trouble finding it on Castbox, which is what I'm using currently. I was using Stitcher, and I didn't have any trouble finding it there either. So
there's no
it
excuse.
Shouldn't be any problem for anybody to find Violent Life. And thank you guys. It's everybody should check it out. It's a lot of fun and very informational and informative.